Hey, how's it going? John Dorsey here. Uh, I want to talk a little bit about autonomous trucks. There's a lot of fear mongering. There's a lot of scare. A lot of people that's nervous about or complaining about how autonomous trucks and Uber freight and stuff like that is going to take away the traditional trucking job or the traditional trucker. Well, first of all, I want to tackle the autonomous truck scenario situation. In high school, I had 3 years of electronics, industrial electronics. So I know a little bit about computer systems. I know a little bit about programming. And I went to college, but I didn't finish. But I studied mechanical engineering and electrical engineering. Sure, I didn't graduate because I needed to make money. But I, I do have introductory knowledge in engineering, and I had 3 years of electronics. So with the autonomous trucks, sure that technology, the possibility exists, but I think that the the chances of it taking away our jobs or traditional truckers' jobs is still 50 to 100 years away, because the truck itself, the technology itself still isn't there yet from a safety standpoint and from a 100% autonomous standpoint. There's a lot of infrastructure that will have to change for the autonomous truck to be 100% autonomous, because the way that the highway system is set up now, the autonomous truck would not be able to safely go from point A to point B on a regular open road, real estate, real life interstate, because you have all these variables. And anybody that's been on the road for more than a day knows that the variables out here on the road are unlimited. You don't know what's going to happen second to second, minute to minute, day to day. And I mean, even the GPS technology isn't 100% efficient. I'm pretty sure you might have. I'm pretty sure you have the experience with GPS. Giving you streets that don't exist, or can't find the address, or the address it's pointing you to isn't where the business is, or isn't where the thing you're looking for is, or the GPS itself loses its signal or it phases out. So just the GPS technology itself, which is old technology, GPS has been around for at least 20 years, and it's still not 100% reliable. Even your cell phone isn't 100% reliable yet, because there's certain spots where you don't have a signal. So the computers aren't reliable enough to tackle a job as big as driving a truck safely. I think that where autonomous trucks will work, like more, where it will work maybe in the next 5 or 10 years, is the turnpikes, the Ohio Turnpike, Indiana Turnpike. Those kind of pretty much straight roads where there aren't really a whole bunch of exits, there aren't a whole bunch of twists and turns, and it can, the truck can start from the Illinois Indiana state line and run it to the eastern side of Ohio, and then a regular driver will have to relay the load to a real life truck driver to go through Pennsylvania or New York State, or whatever the case may be at that point. And from the of course, going west, it most definitely wouldn't be able to get through Chicago autonomously, because you want to talk about variables. There's no way that truck could, if it did go through Chicago, even if it went around 294, it would have to take it. It would have to only do like 45 miles per hour. That way, it would have enough space, and then still you got people. Yeah, it just would not be safe. And just think about, that's like right now, the way that the technology works, like with your self-driving cars or your lane avoidance software, stuff that keeps you, the software they have now, where it keeps you in the lane or lets you know when you're veering out of your lane, and what it's doing is reading the lines, either the stripe lines or just a solid line, and it's reading those lines. But when there's road construction, lots of times those lines aren't there, or the lines are so faded that you can barely see it. And then we've all been in the scenarios where there's road construction and then there's the lane shift, but you also have the stripes for the old lane, which are faded. How could an autonomous car that's reading the lanes know which lane it needs to be reading? And then when there's active construction, sometimes the cones are outside. The cones extend into your lane of travel. That way the construction workers can have enough room to do their work safely. How can an autonomous truck or car navigate that? And then there's scenarios where there's an emergency vehicle or a car on the side of the road, but it is still sticking out somewhat onto the road. So the technology isn't quite there yet to understand these different variables and scenarios. Or you might have road hazards. You might have a construction cone that blew into the middle of the road. You might have a trash bag that fell off a trash truck that's in the middle of the road. You might have pallets, which happened the other day. 2 pallets laying in the middle of your lane of travel right on the interstate. How can an autonomous car or truck avoid that? Even if it has collision detection, collision avoidance, does it know enough, or can it see far enough ahead that I can change lanes safely and get back in my lane and avoid these obstacles? And it's just too many variables to really go through. But like I was saying, I think the ability for it to do that is still 50 to 100 years away. And maybe at a minimum 20 years. Maybe in 20 years, like I said, maybe in 25 to 10 or 20 years, you can have the autonomous trucks just running the turnpikes. Otherwise, I don't think it can navigate a regular interstate, and most definitely could not navigate none of these major cities, unless it's running overnight, unless it's running from midnight to 2 a.m. But otherwise, so if you're nervous or scared or think that the autonomous trucks are going to come take your job, it's going to come and drive down rates or drive down driver pay, then fear no more, because you'll be retired or moved on to other things before that even happens. And I'm feel pretty confident about that, just understanding the evolution of technology, understanding technology in general, I guess you could put it that way. Just look at how far we've come, or lack thereof, in 20 years technology wise. Let's say 1990, 20 years ago, which would be 1997, you barely had cell phones, but the cell phone technology was pretty primitive and pretty basic compared to now, where you basically have a full-fledged computer in the palm of your hand. But the phone itself is more advanced, but the technology driving the phone, to send and receive calls, is still the same. There's spots where back in, let's say, 2001, I didn't have a signal, and to this date, I still don't have a signal in that same spot. So, as you see, the evolution of technology isn't moving fast enough to do something as advanced as have a truck, that 80,000 pound vehicle, when it's fully loaded, moving at 65 to 70 miles per hour down the highway around all these other variables, around all these other people who can change their mind in a split second to decide that they don't want to do the thing that they're doing. They don't want to keep driving down the road. They just want to change lanes and get off the highway at the last second. Or they don't want to be in their lane of travel no more, even though there's a perfectly open lane, and they want to hop in your lane for no reason. Only way the autonomous trucks will work and do it safely is if everything else is autonomous. It had to be 100% autonomous cars and 100% autonomous trucks, and that's the only way it'll be safe. That way, those systems will talk to each other, and they will know their position. They will constantly monitor each other's position. There won't be any random movements, because they will know where each vehicle is at all times, because they'll be talking to each other. Because you can't have a car with a human in it and then an autonomous truck or car at the same time, because the variables just becomes more unsafe. Look at aircraft. Flying in a plane is safer than driving on the highway, and even airplanes aren't 100% autonomous, even though they can be. Flying a plane or air flight, not that I'm a pilot, but just understanding the basics of avionics and air flight from years and years and years and years and years of simulation, that I like flight simulators, so what? Years and years of flying flight simulators, but just understanding not just flight simulators, but just understanding, aircraft. Even aircraft isn't 100% autonomous. They still need a pilot to take off and land. With all the technologies in the aircraft, even though it can potentially take off and land by itself, but they still have two people in there, two people in the cockpit at a minimum to fly that plane, a co-pilot and a pilot. Even though that plane can pretty much take off and land by itself, and most definitely we know it can fly by itself. Once it's in the air, the plane can pretty much navigate on its own once they set the coordinates, set the navigation. So, just looking at that, they don't even have 100 autonomous planes. So why would you think that they would have autonomous trucks or cars before they would have planes that can pretty much they're allowed to fly by itself? So don't worry about autonomous trucks taking your jobs or taking your job. You'll see systems put in trucks that will mimic autonomousism, if that's a word, before you see a fully autonomous truck. Just look at how, just look at the technology you have in a truck today. You have auto follow cruise control, where it keeps the distance between you and the car in front of you, truck in front of you. When you set the cruise control, you have lane avoidance alert, the lane sway alert, whatever you want to call it. When you sway outside of your lane, you have this alert that goes off. You have the alerts to let you know if somebody's in your blind spot. So you have all these other systems in trucks that can mimic or help a driver become a better driver, and you'll get more of that as time goes on. You'll have more and more and more of that getting adopted before you'll ever see you can just let go of the steering wheel and let the truck take over. And sure, there has been tests where that has been done, but those tests have been done on closed tracks. Those tests, as far as I know, haven't been done on a real life interstate with real people around and real traffic. And as far as the Uber Freight thing, Uber is just trying to get a piece of the pie, just like anybody else would. If you have a business mindset and you see an opportunity, you do something that you can. If you see money in something and you see there's an opportunity for you to do something that will make that where you can get into the industry by doing something different, then why not take advantage of it? And that's what Uber's doing. They have, just like look where they started with the, guess you want to say, the cab industry. They saw opportunity to make getting a ride more convenient, and now they seeing an opportunity, or they saw opportunity to make booking loads more convenient for owner operators. And if you look at the rates aren't that far off from your average rate. It might be a little lower than what you might be used to getting, but it's not like it's some astronomically high or low rate compared to your average rate for running that same trip with somebody else or through a broker, which Uber Freight acts as a broker, middleman broker, whatever. So I don't think Uber Freight is going to have a significant impact on driving rates one way or the other. So any fears you have about autonomous trucks, or any fears you have about Uber Freight driving down rates so that they can introduce autonomous trucks, is just ridiculous. So that's all I got to say in this video. If you got some value out of it, like it, share it, subscribe to my channel, so you can get more updates like this, more tips, more insights, and more ways to stay productive and profitable out here on the road. Take a second, check out the link in the description. I always like to place a random link down there that'll be something that can benefit not only your business, not only your life, but also everything else overall into something. But anyway, like I said, you got some value out of this, like it, share it, and I'll talk to you again soon.